been some time since I've been back on the air, and been some time since we've last done this show, and wanted to hit a couple of topics today. We're going to do some film review stuff as well. Should be a fun afternoon of content here on the slot. So we have in Pittsburgh a rumor that the Pittsburgh Steelers are interested in Russell Wilson, and in fact the Pittsburgh Steelers on the betting markets are the most likely destination for Russell Wilson. So I got to tell you, I really don't like this move by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't like it at all. I think that Russell Wilson, his best days are behind him. Okay? He's going to be, I believe, 34 or 35 years old. He did not push the ball down the field. I know he didn't have a high interception percentage, but that's because the guy didn't take a lot of risks. He played 500 football in Denver. And other than that outlier 70-point game, Vance Joseph's unit did not even do that bad last year. Okay? So Russell Wilson did not elevate that offense really at all. All right? I know you had Cortland Sutton. I know that you also had Jerry Jeudy on that roster. You had Marvin Mims, who was a young player. But Russell Wilson, even against the Buffalo Bills, the Bills had, I think Josh Allen threw like 4 interceptions, and then the Bills had to miss a field goal in the end, the Bills were offside that allowed McManus to even have a chance to go out there and make a field goal. It was a miracle that Russell Wilson was able to score 15 points. So that offense could barely score. So I don't give a rat's you-know-what about dang interceptions when you can't even, about not throwing picks when you can't score. Russell Wilson could not score. You have Sean Payton, one of the bright minds in our league, a guy that developed Drew Brees, and yet Russell Wilson now for 2 years has been underwhelming. There's no quarterback worth his salt that ever would have been benched for a 4th-round quarterback from Auburn and Jarrett Stidham. That would not have happened. But they clearly saw, that Russell Wilson was deteriorating. And Sean Payton has a better eye than just about anybody. He sure has a better eye than Art Rooney, than Arthur Smith, than Mike Tomlin. Okay, he dealt with a quarterback that was 6 feet tall, that was aging in Drew Brees. And he knows well when it's time to cut bait. And that's exactly what he did with Russell Wilson. Drew Brees might be a half-inch taller than Russell Wilson, but and Sean Payton knows what it's like when arm strength deteriorates. And Russell Wilson, too, part of Russell Wilson's charm was that Russell Wilson was also able to move, and he used to be faster, used to be lightning fast. And he really had a great running game, but he was able to improvise in an outstanding way. Russell Wilson was able to extend plays and find that second play. And he was one of the best scrambling quarterbacks, one of the best improvisational players in the NFL. That's why he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Maybe not a first ballot, but eventually he'll be a Hall of Famer, and he was a yard away from winning 2 Super Bowls because he played that continuity style. The defense played well, and then he was able to come in and make timely big throws. He has a big arm. He's a magician. That's the thing about Russ. But when the Magic Man loses all his tricks, you're left with just an average shell of a guy in a suit, okay? If you don't have any good tricks for the guy that's in a red velvet suit saying card tricks behind the casino door, you ain't have anything. And that's Russell Wilson. So Russell Wilson, I hate to say this, but with the next couple of years, he's probably in the NFL. He's not going to be a very effective starting quarterback in the next couple of years. He's just not. His best years are behind him. He's getting ready to retire from the NFL. That's what I see of Russell Wilson. So if Russell Wilson comes out there and they ball out in Pittsburgh and that offense explodes, or if they win, I'll admit I was a damn fool on this topic. I'll admit that. All right, but I'm arguing with Father Time. I'm looking at a quarterback that is not the tallest guy, that never had the biggest arm. All right, you look at Joe Flacco, who's 6'5" and 38 years old and always had a big arm and didn't take those hits for those years. But Russell Wilson is about 5'11". He's about 190 pounds. And again, on this channel, we talk sports, we argue which ways to go, or else my show is not going to be very interesting if I just come here and coddle to people and say that every move's going to be a good decision. All right? So Russell Wilson happens to be one of my favorite athletes, a guy who is just a tremendous person in the community. So off of the field, Russell Wilson has a spotless reputation. He's a man of the year type of guy. All right, but we're talking about if Russell Wilson's going to be a good option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The only way you can have a Russell Wilson is if he's an Alex Smith. If he's there for 6 weeks of the year, okay, maybe 10 weeks, maybe a year at max, and then Pittsburgh drafts a quarterback, let's say Bo Nix, let's probably say Spencer Rattler or J.J. McCarthy maybe in round 2. They trade up to round 2 and get a second-round quarterback. Then you allow Russell Wilson to be, the guy. And, will Russell Wilson be enamored with the role of kind of mentoring a young quarterback? I'm not sure. Maybe you go out and get a Case Keenum in that instance, but you allow like a Nix, a Spencer Rattler, a Michael Penix to sit, a J.J. McCarthy to sit for a year. And if you have a good bridge transition where in year 2 they come in and they take off, you got to build young through the quarterback position if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's what you have to do. You have to build young at the quarterback position. Let's look at the teams that are good in this league. Jalen Hurts was young. They went to a Super Bowl. They almost won a Super Bowl. Brock Purdy and the 49ers for the last several years. A young 7th-round quarterback that costs nothing, that is younger. Josh Allen in Buffalo when he was young. Mahomes when he was young. Look at C.J. Stroud. Look at how exciting their future is going to be in Houston when you hit on a rookie quarterback. Look at Indianapolis, how cheap they are at quarterback right now, and how they ended up getting a solid backup quarterback, okay, that was there, and their organization now was able to spread the wealth to get some wide receivers, to get better line play. Heck, the coach in that league, the coach of Shane Steichen, is one of the better coaches in the NFL. So that's really the way to build it. You look at Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, they were paying him too much money. It didn't work out. All right? Look at the quarterbacks that are making, big time money. I mean, Matt Stafford, that roster is not very good. They had to really be coached up to be effective. Derek Carr making a decent amount of money on the New Orleans Saints. It's not really working. And in that division, you have Baker Mayfield, and Baker ended up having a pretty dang good season. So that's the way it should go. Look at Deshaun Watson in Houston. Now, Houston's defense happens to be great, and I give a lot of credit to Eric Berry for building that organization out. All right, so, all right, I get it. Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes are 2 of the highly paid quarterbacks in the NFL. All right, I get it. But I don't like giving, a quarterback big money. I really don't. You look at Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, and they're probably, when you pay a quarterback, your team then gets worse. So for the Steelers, okay, you try to, again, Band-Aid the situation with a Russell Wilson. Eventually, you're going to have to take a crack at a younger quarterback. And Kenny Pickett, to me, for 2 years and for being a late first-round pick. Notice how I said late, because if you're picked in the top 10, you get a longer leash. You look at Mac Jones and guys that are picked in the late first round, it's like, we like the guy, but we're kind of bidding against ourselves, and That kind of happened with Kenny Pickett a little bit. You know, he didn't have a good year in college until his last year. With Mark Whipple in Pittsburgh. He's been actually better than I would have thought he would be in the NFL, meaning I didn't even think he could win any of these games, but he's won some games. So maybe the scheme with Arthur Smith will help out Kenny Pickett, but I like getting a quarterback that can actually that has good arm strength, that has a lot of mobility, that sees it quickly, that dominated at college. And there's a lot of guys that dominated at the college level that have bigger arms and more excitement than Kenny Pickett. You know, I think that Bo Nix can see things quickly. Bo Nix won at every level of college at Oregon. Bo Nix had 3 great years of college compared to Kenny Pickett's. You know, Bo Nix is just faster, bigger arm than Kenny Pickett. Spencer Rattler, faster, powerful arm. J.J. McCarthy, 5-star, powerful arm, pretty damn mobile, won a national championship. Like these guys' ceilings are higher than Kenny. Kenny Pickett's ceiling, he does not make plays out of structure. He does not really push the ball down the field consistently. Now, you could argue it's because of Matt Canada, and to that I'd say, I hear you that the offensive scheme wasn't all that effective, but is Kenny Pickett going to be a really high-level, big-time guy? Because we've seen Russell Wilson with a Nathaniel Hackett offense, and then with Sean Payton, it hasn't been good. So why do you think putting him in Pittsburgh is going to suddenly unlock Russell Wilson? Unless you want to continue to play rock fights, right? Unless Art Rooney wants to continue to squeeze the season ticket holder to get to 10 wins. Woohoo! 10-7, 9-8. All right. Second or third in the division, but a 7th seed. And then you go to the 2 seed and you lose by 10 points, 13 points. Woohoo! A first-round exit, an 8-8, 9-7 football team. Great purgatory. That's what the Steelers are in. That is why it's time for them to take a risk in the draft. And fine, if you want to sign Wilson cheap, that's fine. But eventually you're going to have to take a risk in the draft, because if you hit in the draft, look at what happens. When the Eagles were able to get the most out of Jalen Hurts, they had a special season. When C.J. Stroud is able to get some of these pieces in Houston, you watch. They're going to be special. So when Brock Purdy was brought in and Kyle Shanahan's able to have a cheap quarterback and you have a good offensive scheme, watch out. Joe Flacco, really cheap quarterback. Baker Mayfield, the Bucs retain a lot of their guys like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, because Mayfield was making like $5 million. So that's how I like to do it. If you can do it that way, you do it, and you do it with a cheap quarterback. You do. So I get where Arthur's coming from. He tried it with Desmond Ridder, third stringer. It didn't work. You keep Kenny Pickett on the roster. Fine. You take Russell Wilson. Fine. Okay, these guys are fine at least. At least I see from Arthur's perspective. He wants Russell Wilson. He wants a stable veteran. Fine. I think Kirk Cousins is a lot better. Maybe it'll be more expensive, but fine, get Kirk Cousins. Then in the second round, take J.J. McCarthy. So eventually you have your plan in place. You need to have a succession plan in place, just like the Green Bay Packers had with Aaron Rodgers, and now you're seeing the fruits of the labor that they put in with Jordan Love. That's what Pittsburgh needs to solve quarterback. They need to. It's been too long, and it's frustrating because you have TJ Watt, you have a really good defense, you have a good head coach, you finally, I believe, got a good offensive coordinator, you happen to have decent weapons on the outside, your running back stable is not awful, Jaylen Warren can be good, Najee Harris can be a 1-2 punch that is fine, all right, that's good enough. George Pickens can be good enough, Freiermuth can be good enough. You need a good quarterback. It's as simple. The NFL is simple. It's about the quarterback position. That's why if you get a veteran quarterback, you need to still draft. That shouldn't be your top priority. And Russell Wilson, I think, is washed. I'd even rather have Kenny Pickett than Russell Wilson. So I don't want any part of that.